The Cape Cod Commission is the regional planning, economic development, and regulatory agency for Cape Cod. We are charged with protecting the unique values and quality of life on Cape Cod by coordinating a balanced approach to environmental protection and economic progress. Even more simply put, our mission is really to keep a special place special.
The Commission approached me as a potential collaborator on the Community Resiliency and Missing Middle initiative. I really wanted Eastham to participate because it was going to be an opportunity for us to look at some innovative techniques and best practices to address the housing crisis that's really affecting Cape Cod and especially Eastham.
I think there's some recognition across all levels of government on the Cape currently that there is a housing crisis. 80% of the housing stock across the region is single-family homes. 36% of the housing is used seasonally. With our median sales price for a single-family home over $700,000 across the region, our wages just not keeping up.
The lack of affordable and attainable housing is really a crisis.
Because there are so few opportunities for the missing middle housing types on the Cape, we're seeing younger families leave the region.
The success of this project in a lot of ways was the Cape Cod Commission's foresight and understanding that the first thing that needed to happen was to sort of change hearts and minds a little bit.
We kind of took a very grassroots approach to the work. We had stakeholder groups that we met with regularly, and we had a number of community meetings where we were able to get feedback through visual preference surveys and other feedback to see like what kind of housing is appropriate for the community.
We would even throw up two images and say, which one of these do you think has a higher density?
Throughout the workshops, Union Studio would present two different images and ask people, which one do you think is more dense? And oftentimes people wouldn't get it right.
I think people actually came to enjoy the community meetings that they came out to because we tried to make them interactive. We really tried to engage them and get them to think a little bit about it, and just recognizing that, you know, a lot of things they were really afraid of, they might have been fearing the wrong things.
I think the most impactful part of it has been this real underpinning of seeing is believing. People not realizing how much development exists on the Cape already that is of a very dense form, and yet it is already that beloved Cape Cod architecture.
Some of the things that did exist on the Cape historically, like the really dense cottage neighborhoods that were there, you know, in the past that, you know, in recent history have largely been, you know, zoned out of possibility. Even those examples were of a density that people really didn't quite understand. It was nice to sort of bring those back and remind people that those kinds of types can really be an important way to add density into their communities.
One of the big elements here was demystifying the numbers around density. When people try to calculate it out on a numerical basis, things like 20 units to the acre can sound really scary, but we were finding examples of little duplex units that were on a lot not much bigger than the building itself.
Some of the key aspects that this project embodies in terms of the Community Resiliency by Design project, really breaking up the massing into smaller buildings, multiple buildings. You're not looking at one large apartment building, so breaking it up into forms that also have your typical Cape Cod architecture components like the gable roof, the shingling, at a scale that is traditionally found throughout the region.
The report has been hugely successful in that it's really been able to communicate to our towns across the region where we're lacking and what types of housing we're lacking.
We just completed some zoning amendments this past May, which were all approved unanimously, and it really reflects the work that we did in the Missing Middle initiative. So really in Eastham, we were able to take almost all the best practices and recommendations that were in the report, incorporating form-based code directly into the zoning, allowing the missing middle housing types into the land use table.
There have been at least 3 specific RFPs that have come out from communities on the Cape using the actual sites that we studied as part of the Cape Resiliency project.
I think there's still a lot of work to do. And I think many of our communities are embracing this type of design and this type of movement towards housing development across the Cape.